Hello YouTubers and fellow Whovians, and welcome to another Doctor Who CD review. This time we shall be taking a look at the second of the trilogy of stories starring Sylvester McCoy and Bonnie Langford, and this time we shall be taking a look at the warehouse, which follows on from We Are the Daleks. And before I start this review, if you missed that review of We Are the Daleks, then you can see the link to that review at the top right hand corner of your screen right now. So without further ado, let's take a look at the showcasing of this cover. Now, we've got quite a few things going on in the cover. Yet again, we've got the usual strip of stuff, Big Finish stuff. We already know about that. Just says Sylvester McCoy and Bonnie Langford in the warehouse. This story was written by Mike Tucker. We have the Sylvester McCoy face from the title sequence that debuted in 1987 with The Time on the Rani. We have just additional cast notes featuring Philip Franks and Dilly Keane. Got the Big Finish logo at the bottom left. And yeah, let's just take a look at the main stuff that's going on the cover. And there's quite a number of things going on here. I believe this is meant to be inside the warehouse. We've got the 7th Doctor there in his season 24 outfit, as this takes place sometime during season 24. We've got Mel here, and we've got two characters here, which I believe are the clones, because there are clones in this story. I won't give too much away, but yeah, that's what I think. And you can see that he is holding a different umbrella here, as something happens to his umbrella during this audio story. I think here we've got this sort of assembly line, and you've got all the boxes and everything like that, and you know, they'll be on some sort of treadmill being carried away. Got the planet here, because the warehouse is like a space warehouse. It's in space, and it's just orbiting above a planet, and they go down to the planet during the audio. And it just says here, please place your order. We have this claw arm here that's just holding these boxes. Kind of reminds me a little bit of the claw that we saw in the Tennant story, Planet of the Ood. I think it's probably all in me that thought that. Again, it just says here, please place your order. And you've got all this sort of green stuff all over the place. I believe this is meant to be fungus, because it plays a huge part. And what's this? A rat! That's the side of the audio, so we have Sylvester McCoy's face at the top. It just says Doctor Who The Warehouse at the side, and this is release 202 in the main monthly range of Big Finish audios. And here it just says at the back who it's written by, who it's directed by. It's directed by Barnaby Edwards in this case. Again, it's 120 minutes approx, just like We Are the Daleks. It's 4 parts long. It's as if it would have been a usual 4-part 25-minute episode slot. So 4 times 25 minutes plus a couple of extras such as isolated music and behind the scenes, plus a next time trailer for the next release in the main range, which I'll talk a little bit about towards the end of this review. The Doctor and Mel lands in what appears to be an orbiting warehouse, a delivery facility with a dangerously erratic computer. Whilst Mel is helping with repairs, the Doctor begins to realise that not everything in the warehouse is as it seems. Why do no goods ever seem to leave the shelves? Why are the staff so obsessed with the stocktake? And who is the mysterious supervisor? On a planet below, the Doctor discovers that the computer might be the least of their problems, and that they should be more concerned with the space station's mould and vermin. And here we've got the cast. I don't think the cast is as big as the cast for We Are the Daleks. It's not as grand as We Are the Daleks in my opinion, but for what it's worth, I think the cast in this, again, they do a pretty good job in this audio, and a few people in the cast play multiple roles, and that happens in a few Big Finish audios. So taking a look inside, we've got the alternate cover there, and we have the two main discs. So disc 1 contains part 1, 2, plus isolated music score at the end, and there we have disc 2 with parts 3 and 4, and that contains the Next Time trailer at the end, as well as a little behind the scenes snippet. And available now, other releases you may enjoy, and this is a lot of earlier releases because, you know, the style has changed as time has gone on with Big Finish releases, and I believe all the stories here that are advertised are stories that have featured Mel. So we have the Fires of Vulcan, the One Doctor, Bang Bang A Boom, Flip Flop, the Juggernauts, and Catch 1782. Here are the things inside the little leaflet that comes with this, the main cover. We have the next episode advertisement, which is Terror of the Sontarans, and that's release 203. And here it's just advertising Doctor Who magazine. You may see the little picture of Sylvester McCoy there. That's promoting the audio Damaged Goods, which is a adaptation of a novel that came out during the wilderness years during the 1990s, and stay tuned for a review of that in the near future. Now then, what do I think of the warehouse? Well, I said in my review of We Are the Daleks, that was just an absolutely astonishing story. For me, We Are the Daleks was a great way to introduce new fans to the Big Finish audios. It was a great starting point for any Doctor Who fan. So the warehouse is naturally a good following on point from We Are the Daleks, as this is the next release in the main audio range, and it's the second of a trilogy featuring the 7th Doctor and Mel, which concludes with the next story, Terror of the Sontarans. Of course, it features the Doctor and Mel again, so it's set sometime during season 24, and I've said before, I'll say it again, season 24 is considered one of the worst ever seasons in Doctor Who history, and quite rightfully so. Stories like Time and the Rani just seem to be very hated by a lot of Doctor Who fans, and it's a good idea by Big Finish that they decided to pair the 7th Doctor and Mel again, because they didn't really have that much time together, because Ace is the 7th Doctor's companion. When we think of companions with the 7th Doctor, we immediately think of Ace. So what do I think of this story? Well, I'll be very blunt. I'll just say straight away, I don't think that the warehouse is as good as We Are the Daleks. Out of the 3 stories in this trilogy, this was the one I was probably least looking forward to. Maybe that's just because this features an original villain, whereas the other 2 featured Daleks and Sontarans. I don't know, it could just be me, so it kind of put me off a little bit. But that's not to say that this is a bad story, that's far from it. I think this is a very good story in my opinion. Very atmospheric, it feels like a mid to late 80s story. I think, again, the music in this, I'll tell you, the music in this is quite good. I actually quite like the music, and I like the whole concept of it being a warehouse in space. I don't know what it is, I just thought it was a good idea that they do that. It seems a little bit claustrophobic, especially in the first part. I feel that the first episode is very atmospheric. I thought it set the tone very, very nicely. It was a great first episode. The Doctor and Mel are together for most of the first episode, and then really from part 2 onwards they're separated, and for me part 2 I sort of went out of it a bit. because I couldn't really visualise what was going on. I've listened to it a couple of times, but I will say for the record that the second time listening to it, I got it a lot more. But I don't know what it was. I still get the feeling of part 2. I sort of went out of it a bit. I wouldn't say I got bored. I don't know what it was. I didn't feel the same as I did in part 1, because I really loved part 1. I thought it was a great way to start the story. Part 2, I went out of it a little bit, but part 2 has a good cliffhanger, I will say that. And part 3, it picks up a little bit again, although there's a little bit of part 3, which again I sort of go out of. When we get into part 4, I thought that part 4 was really good, and it was a good way to round off the story. We had quite a nice twist with who the villain of the story is. I won't give anything away. You'll have to listen to this for yourself. I thought all the stuff with the vermin, the rats, I thought that was a very interesting concept, because it was a theme that ran throughout the story, and I thought that overall it did pay off in the end. The performances, I thought they were good once again. I'll quickly talk about the 7th Doctor. Now, of course, I said it's set during season 24, so I'm meant to imagine that this is the more sillier, comical version of the 7th Doctor. And I said in my review of We Are the Daleks that although it's set during season 24, we kind of see, or listen to, I should say, the later version of the 7th Doctor. So I'm talking about what we see from season 25 onwards. And I feel that in this, it sort of continues that, but I think that in this particular story, he is also a little bit like he is in season 24. What Mike Tucker did well, though, I have to laud Mike Tucker for this. He balanced it out a little bit. So he had a little bit of comical stuff in there. For instance, the 7th Doctor plays the spoons again, and that's probably something that Sylvester McCoy wanted in there, because he actually can do it in real life. I've actually seen him do it in real life, a few feet away from me. And I think that putting that in there, a good touch, but at the same time, he's still got that manipulative side to him, and you see that a lot through the later parts of the story. So I have to really laud Mike Tucker for that, because one thing I was a little bit worried about going into this trilogy was the fact that these stories would have been set sometime in between stories set during the 24th season, which was just absolute pants. So I'm glad that they went for that. They've sort of reimagined what it would have been like, say, if the show had been written better back in the day and handled better. With Mel, I think that Mel has got a bit to do again in this story. She's got computer skills. She's a 1980s girl, and she's a computer expert. So, writing this for a story that comes out in 2015, they did a really good job, because you had to imagine that the present day would have been the mid to late 80s. And I think the way they've handled Mel with all the computer skills, and the same goes for this in We Are the Daleks as well. I think that, again, they did a good job with Mel, and she's not that annoying, screamy child that we first saw back in the late 80s. I think that they've totally reimagined the character, and I think that Big Finish have really done her some justice here, and she's actually likeable in this, as opposed to the TV series, which Mel is kind of awful, to be honest. A lot of people say that, but the Big Finished audios, they really do the character some justice, and other characters that may be disliked amongst Doctor Who fans. The other supporting characters, we have the clones. I thought they were a good thing to bring into the story. They added to the story, and there's something that happens at the end of part 2. It sort of changes. I felt at parts it was kind of like two stories in one, because two settings in the story. We have the warehouse, and then we have a place on the planet below, which is kind of like a religious place, and it kind of reminded me a bit of The Brain of Morbius, because in that we had the haunted house, and at the same time we had this cave area place where we had the Sisterhood of Khan, which was like a cult of sisters that worship this flame. And the same goes here. We've got this religious element coming to this, and you hear this at the end of the second episode, and I think that was a good thing, because like I said, I was going out of it a little bit towards the end of episode 2, but then it picked up towards the end, if you get what I mean, because the tone of the story completely changed. It wasn't just all on the warehouse anymore. There was stuff going on the planet below. So I'm glad they did that. I mean, I'm really glad they did that. I thought it was a great idea to do that. Otherwise, the story would have felt monotonous, and I would have got really bored and really tired, and I would have called it a day probably. So overall, all around, I think that this is a great story. Although I went out of it a little bit, I did struggle to visualise what was going on in parts of episodes 2 and 3, but I thought it had a very strong start, and it had a very strong and satisfying conclusion. And for that, I'm going to give Doctor Who The Warehouse an 8 out of 10. So that's my review of The Warehouse. Stay tuned next time, as I shall be taking a look at the next release in the main audio range, which is Terror of the Sontarans. I hope you're all having a great day, and I shall see you for that review.